So hello, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Today is going to be a lot of information poured your way. You're going to be hearing me, Dr. Megan Speciali. I am the chair of admissions for the counseling department, and I'm going to be taking the lead on the first few slides today. And then we have Tanya and Ulrich here. Do you guys want to jump in and introduce yourselves as well?
Sure, I will go first. So my name is Tanya Romero. I'm a senior admissions counselor here at PAU, and I work closely with the undergraduate programs as well as the master's program. So if you have any questions about this program specifically, then you will probably speak with me at some point or another. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here, hopefully answer some questions and give you guys some good information.
Hey, I can go next. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ulrich. I am one of the graduate advisors for the Palo Alto University Masters in Counseling program. If you have any questions about the program or the program experience, me and Tanya will be answering questions in the chat box. Throughout the course of the presentation, we'll have room for people to ask live questions toward the end. We're going to have like a little FAQ, but during the course of the presentation, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put things in the chat, and we'll be able to get those questions as soon as possible. It's very nice to meet everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Ulrich. So yeah, don't be shy with your questions. And if you have a live question, we'll be tackling those at the end. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. So meet our CMHC counseling team. So here we are, the Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. This is just the first slide of a few. You are going to be seeing quick images of our faculty members. Just as a heads up, you are able to explore the teaching and research and clinical expertise of all of our faculty members, the paloaltou.edu website. So I'm not going to spend too much time introducing everyone here, but look, that's me. Yay. All right, moving on. Here's another group of our amazing staff. Here you're going to be interfacing with a couple of these folks throughout the admissions process, and certainly after enrollment, you'll get to know these faces very, very well. We do have 3 locations. So for folks, we have, this is a program that is marked by flexibility. So we have both campuses in Mountain View and in Palo Alto, but we also have a robust online virtual training space as well. So we host many of our classes over the platform Zoom, where you are joining us today. And next, well, this is, I think, really a gold star for our program. We are CACREP accredited. So what CACREP means, so CACREP is the Council of Associated Counseling Related. Can we expand on that, Tanya? What is that? The Council for Accreditation for Counseling and Related Educational Programs. That is a mouthful, folks, but rest assured, it's a good thing. It's a good mouthful. So our program received CACREP accreditation, geez, I would say probably about 7 years ago. So we have had this kind of gold star on our program for quite a while. Our program, the Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, is both regionally and professionally accredited. And what accreditation means for you looking at programs is, first of all, we have this marker that our curriculum, our formats, our delivery styles have all been reviewed by this accrediting body, which is the largest accrediting body for counseling programs across the United States. What CACREP also means is that you have enhanced portability of your license. So by attending a CACREP accredited master's program, when you go to pursue licensure, that CACREP on your resume or on your transcript shows licensure boards that you have a robust training and educational experience. These are actually mentioned, CACREP is mentioned in state licensure laws by 26 states and growing. So that is great news for folks who may be starting their educational journey in one state, but have plans to potentially move at some point in your life. Also, CACREP is recognized by at least 3 federal agencies and actively hiring counselors from CACREP programs. So we have here the Army Addiction Program, TRICARE, and the Department of Veteran Affairs. So here are the slides I'm going to zoom through pretty quickly, but just take a look. We do have an outstanding faculty at Palo Alto University. Honestly, my colleagues are just about the joy of my day, just about every day, that and the students. So again, if you have questions about specific faculty members, feel free to check out the paloaltou.edu website and explore your faculty. So the MA program has two delivery formats. We have a hybrid program that consists of both residential and online classes, and then a fully online distance learning program. These programs are the same number of units and take the same amount of time to complete, which is 2 years and 3 months. So that totals in 3 classes per quarter. Let's talk a little bit, do a little deeper dive into the hybrid program. So typically what you'll see if you are in the hybrid program is 2 classes on campus and 1 online per quarter. So after 1 term, you can opt in to 2 different emphasis areas, one of which is the marriage and family child, and then clinical mental health counseling would be the other. If you are coming to this open house today with some coursework in another counseling graduate program, just know that up to 13.5 quarter units or 9 semester units is transferable. So that is something that we would have you work with our admissions team to really figure out which of those credits might be eligible for transfer into this program. 1 unit in the program. So most of our classes are between 3 and 4.5 units. So 1 unit, as a rule of thumb, generally equals about 3 hours of time commitment in and outside of class. Okay. We do employ a cohort model, which means the folks that you attend your first day of class with are generally the folks that you're going to be finishing up the program with. So this is I really enjoy the cohort model because this becomes another source of social support for you throughout your program. You have people that you form relationships with, that you can have study groups with and look to help kind of navigate the experience of being a student at PAU. And our folks in the cohort model really, I think by the end of 2 years and three months, are surprised with how much they've really leaned on each other. So it's a really beautiful thing. And also as a heads up, so it's a minimum of 6 units required for financial aid per quarter. So if you are joining us with the intention of using financial aid, 6 units is required for full-time status. In the second year, you'll be continuing your coursework, which will be, of course, online and on campus. But this is when really the excitement happens. So you will be starting your first field experience. So we call that practicum and internship here. So this is when you are working directly with clients. You are working at an agency, you are working with other counseling colleagues, and your schedule really starts to get hectic. But this is also the most exciting time of the program because you're actually putting all that first year of education to practice. So the field experience component for this degree is 280 hours of direct experience. So this is face-to-face experience with your clients, and then 420 additional hours of indirect experience. And so this involves anything from planning and prepping, supervision, writing up case notes. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of that stuff involved with seeing clients face-to-face. So it totals 700 hours. Field experience, so practicum and internship takes a minimum of 3 quarters. It's not uncommon for folks to go 4 quarters, but a minimum of 3 quarters is typically expected. And all of your practicum and internship classes are going to meet on Tuesday evenings. So that's something easy to kind of plan for throughout your second year of coursework, is that to just mark off Tuesday nights from 6 a.m. Geez, that would be awful. At 6 p.m. Pacific time. So your agency sites are typically either school-based, mental health agencies, or other nonprofit counseling centers. And then year 2 and beyond, that's when you graduate. That's the fun stuff. So distance learning program, same basic format with the exception of 2 5-day on-ground residencies. Okay, so our distance students do still have an on-campus presence, but they are spread out. So you attend your first residency in the first term of your acceptance, and then your second residency in the third term. All right, so those are also really intense experiences, but opportunities for you to meet your cohort members and your faculty face to face. We also just have a lot of fun during those residencies. So very, very exciting time, especially in that meeting everyone for the first time. Let's see. I think we've already covered the rest of that. Awesome. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about the licensure and emphasis areas. So I mentioned earlier that we have the emphasis area of the marriage, family, and child counseling emphasis. So let's looking at if you're coming into the program for the MA in clinical mental health counseling without an emphasis, without that MFC emphasis. So you in California, you are LPCC eligible, which is the licensed professional clinical counselor. The hours, only your hours collected after graduation will qualify toward that licensure. And if you are located in another state, you'll be looking at the licensure requirements for the state that you are in to ensure that how to count those hours toward licensure. If you select the marriage, family, and child counseling emphasis in California, you are LMFT eligible and also dual license eligible in the state of California. So some of our students do elect to pursue both the LPCC and the LMFT upon graduation. And again, if you choose the marriage, family, child counseling emphasis, you're going to, and you're in another state, you'll just want to make sure that you're looking at the licensure requirements of your state to follow that. We do have a hyperlink here that will show you some licensure requirements. Tanya, are our attendees going to get a copy of these slides after this meeting?
Yes, I will be sending them out as well.
Okay, lovely. So you'll be able to access this hyperlink when you receive the slides, but this is a really great information center for our folks who are outside of California. And then you have a little bit of time to select your emphasis area. So you have your first quarter of classes, but in your very first kind of your professional orientation class, which is an orientation both to the counseling profession and to PAU and in our master's program, you'll be spending a lot of time talking about the differences between these two paths, the implications that that has for you as a professional. And let's take a quick look at a sample roadmap to licensure here in California. So first up, you will graduate from the Master's in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. So you complete your license eligible degree. You then register as a postmaster's professional with the BBS. You find a postmaster's clinical site. You take the law and ethics exam. Doesn't that sound fun? You complete your 3,000 hours under supervision, and then you take your final state exam. And then that's when the big books start rolling in. You have your independent licensure in your state, which is always feels like such an enormous accomplishment. And I will pass the mic over to you, Tanya.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and jump into our admissions requirements for our MA in Clinical Mental Health Counseling program. So as you look on the screen, you'll find all of the things you'll need in order to officially apply to the program. So you will need to complete an application through SciCast, which is our application website. Within this application, you'll need to submit a resume or a CV, whichever you have will work fine. You'll also need to submit a statement of purpose, and we do have the prompts for this on our website if you'd like to take a look at that in advance, but you'll find all of that information within the application, of course. Along with that, you'll need 3 recommendation letters, and we do require these recommendation letters to come from either a professional or an educational reference. So this could be a past manager, supervisor, a previous professor, and if you've done any volunteer or lab work, it could be a volunteer or lab coordinator as well. You'll also need to submit all of your official transcripts from any and all institutions where you completed coursework towards your undergraduate degree. So even if you completed a few classes at a community college, you'll still need to provide us with those transcripts as well. And once you turn in all of this information and your application is verified by SciCast, then we will potentially invite you to interview, and that'll be the last step of the application process. And for those of you that are international students or completed your undergraduate degree outside of the US, then you'll also need to provide us with a transcript evaluation. West.org is the evaluator service that we are very familiar with, so we always recommend them. But if you find a different evaluation service, just make sure that they are accredited by NACIS, then that should work fine as well. And you'll also need to provide us with your TOEFL or your IETLS exam scores as well. But other than that, in terms of deadlines, if you're interested in starting next spring, which begins in April, you'll need to apply by March 5th. And if you're interested in applying to fall 2024, which starts in September, you'll need to apply by July 30th. And both of these applications are currently open, so you can start working on those as soon as you would like. And for those of you that are interested in our online program and are not currently located in California, we do want to bring to your attention that there are certain states where we cannot offer enrollment into our program. And this is due to how the U.S. Department of Education has changed federal law, which governs how colleges and universities operate when they offer distance learning education. So if you are located in any of these states, or you plan to be located in any of these states by the beginning or anywhere in between the program, then we unfortunately would not be able to offer you enrollment into the program. This is subject to change, but we have very little say into which states are on here and really knowing when they will be removed. So we recommend checking our website for updates. But if you do have any specific questions about this, you can reach out to our admissions office. And I do want to touch on the transcript entry. So within the SciCast application, you'll eventually run into this page, which requests for you to manually input all of your coursework from your undergraduate degrees. And so this may seem a little bit redundant since you are submitting all of your official transcripts as well, but this is just a requirement that SciCast has so that they can cross-check all of your coursework from your official transcripts with what you manually input. And so if there's any inconsistencies, then they'll reach out to you so that you can make the appropriate corrections. But this is a little bit time consuming, so just keep that in mind. But there is alternatively a service that they offer in which they could get your transcripts entered professionally. And it's about $75 that you can pay, and they'll be able to do all of that for you. But that is completely optional. You can definitely do it yourself if you have the time, but just keep in mind to set aside a few hours if you'd like to do that. And I do want to mention that if you are applying a little bit closer to the deadline, just keep in mind that they do not keep deadlines in mind. They are a first come, first serve basis. So they will not put your transcript entry ahead of anybody else's. So I would say about 20 business days before is always kind of like the max for me. And so once we receive your application, it's verified by SciCast, then we'll be able to officially review it and potentially invite you to interview. So that would be the last step of the application process. And so this is offered in a group interview format. So there will be a group of applicants, a current professor who will be conducting the interview, and then a current student as well. And so like I said before, the interviews are based on the initial application review. We aren't able to officially go in and review your application until your application is verified by SciCast. So make sure that after you submit your application, all of the information is correct and SciCast has officially verified it before you kind of sit back and wait for us to reach out to you. And just keep in mind also that we will begin interviews in January, regardless of how early or how late you turn in your application. And lastly, if you have any questions about financial aid, feel free to reach out to our financial aid office. They'll be able to give you more information about what your finance options are. And if you have any questions about being an international student or a military member, Lisa Harris is our Associate Director of Student Services and International Military Advising. So she'll be able to help you with any questions about visa or military benefits. So you can see her information here. And just in terms of tuition and fees, we're looking at about $638 per unit. And the program is about 94.5 units long. So the estimated price for the entire program is $60,292. And this is specifically tuition and fees. This does not include any books or any other costs that may arise. So just keep that in mind as well. But with that being said, I think that's all of the admissions information. I know that I talk really quickly, so I will leave my email in the chat if you do have any questions, but feel free to voice your questions now, and I'll pass it back over to Dr. Speciale. Oh, I think you're still muted.
Yes, I am. All right, so we're gonna stop sharing. I know there's a ton of questions in the chat box, so Tanya and Ulrich, should we just start working through the chat box questions? Okay, great. I'm got a little lost, so I'm gonna I love all of these questions, but I am going to maybe start at the first question that I see doesn't have a reply to it. So do we have do we accept part-time students? So Amanda, one thing that you'll want to keep in mind is that if you are enrolling part-time, then that will not be eligible for financial aid. So if you are planning on self-pay for your tuition, then having a slowed down course program of study, I think is possible. But again, it does have major financial aid implications. So can you apply for both LPCC and LMFT if pursuing clinical counseling program? Elise, the answer is yes. If you are applying for the CMHC master's program, what we're talking about today, you can apply for dual licensure. Is there an opportunity to receive a PPS credential in school counseling with this program? No, Scott, we do not have a PPS credential. All right. How long would it take to graduate if pursuing both the LMFT and LPCC emphasis? So the graduation is not delayed if you are pursuing, if you are hoping to pursue dual licensure. The graduation, the time frame is the same. What will be extended again is your path to licensure afterward, because you are meeting the requirements for both licenses. Let's see. The application requires you to enter to your work experience. Should this be different than the resume and CV? So I've filled out applications throughout my life as well. And yes, sometimes it seems a little counterintuitive to update a resume and do those little fill in the blanks. Yes, we do ask that you even just copy and paste from your resume if that information is already included, because the SICAS application actually has some additional information which may not be on your resume, so that we make sure and ask them specifically in the portal, and knowing that some of that is going to be already contained on your CV. So I apologize for that double duty. What are the institutions where I can do internship? Okay, so Christina, depending on where you're located, Palo Alto may or may not have a list of agencies in your area. If you are located here in the Bay Area, our clinical training team has a huge list of eligible agencies. But if you are outside of the Bay Area, that doesn't mean that we cannot help you find one. So it is not uncommon for, let's say you are joining from Southern Arkansas and we have never had a student from that area ever before. You can still complete your practicum and internship at PAU with some research, right? So you're looking to your local community and you are finding counseling agencies that meet our criteria for an eligible site. So whether you're in a rural area, if you're an international student, we success with finding placements for our students. For your second question, how do I find supervisors? So that is one of the criteria that would stipulate around being an eligible site. So what we look for in your local community agencies is there a person there that has an eligible supervision license? So we wouldn't have you at a placement that doesn't have a supervisor that would be eligible to supervise you while being a student in the program. So that is kind of part and parcel. If you are at an agency, an approved agency, then it will have a supervisor there who will supervise you while you're in the program. Upon graduation, however, so you will finding a supervisor after you graduate is going to be largely based on the type of site that you are in. Some of our students stay on with whatever site that they stayed at during their practicum and internship. They graduate and then they continue to stay on with that site for those 3,000 hours, but some folks choose to go to a different site. And so that process will kind of start again for you looking to find supervision within your sites. So can you work full-time while completing the program? It is not uncommon for our students to be full-time employees, full-time parents, full-time caregivers while being in the program. But I will say it gets really challenging to juggle 40 hours work week when you start your practicum and internship experience. So you may be able to, for that first year, maintain your full-time employment. In the second year, that's typically when we see students reduce their hours of employment down to part-time so they can accommodate the extra hours that they are spending at their practicum and internship site. So when are admissions decisions finalized and announced? I think, Tanya, you had a slide. Do you have the dates for those off the top of your head?
So based off of our deadline, so we do actually review and offer enrollment on a rolling basis. So we will potentially even offer you enrollment before the deadline comes. But the very last around time frame that you're going to hear about getting into the program is going to be about 2 or 3 weeks after the actual deadline comes. So depending on which term you're applying for.
Okay. At least a quarter and term are used interchangeably. If we are based in California and enroll in the distance learning option, are we still able to visit unauthorized states or other countries during winter program breaks? Oh, yeah, you can visit there. You can, you can do all the things. The issue, Kelly, is that some of the states on the list that we showed earlier have specific requirements around distance education that renders PAU ineligible for offering education in those states. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. However, if you are visiting in New Mexico for a summer, that's totally fine. If you complete your degree with PAU and then move to one of these states, would that affect your ability to be licensed in that state? Tanya, can you help me with this question? So I know that if you become licensed in the state of California and then move to another state, you will likely be eligible for licensure in those states after you have already obtained California licensure. Is there any details on this, Tanya, that you can share?
Yeah, so licensing gets a little bit tricky depending on the state, because every state has their own set of licensure laws. And so the biggest thing with that question is making sure that the educational requirements for that state that you're planning to move in match with what California's are and what PAU can offer. Because there are certain states where, for example, Hawaii has a very specific amount of units that you need to be taking per class. And if you're not meeting that amount of units, then you're not eligible for licensure in that state. So I would really recommend looking into what those licensing laws are or requirements for the state that you're planning to move in, just to make sure that everything's going to be able to transfer over correctly. But you may come across some issues depending on which state you're planning to move in. So just make sure to do your due diligence before you actually apply for the program.
All right. Let's see. So just to clarify, if I plan to pursue the clinical mental health counseling, I would have to practice for 3,000 hours in addition. Yes. So your kind of post license or your post graduation time clock starts after graduation. So those 3,000 hours are in addition to what you have completed during the program. Alice, we do accept unofficial transcripts if you are completing your bachelor's degree. I think, is it, Tanya, upon enrollment, do we need a finalized transcript, or how does that work?
So if you apply while you're still completing your undergraduate degree, we may offer you, I'm forgetting the word for some reason. We may offer you enrollment, but up until you actually are able to send us your official transcripts from your completed program, that's when we'll be able to officially offer you enrollment, if that makes sense. So once you complete your last semester or quarter, you'll just send us your official transcripts, and that'll be the last step.
Conditional enrollment. That's the word. We're still waking up over here on the West Coast. So Kelly, yep, the 60K is for the entire program. Theodore, do we start reviewing for fall 2024 in January as well? So typically we're going to taper those. So we're going to prioritize the spring admissions decisions first in January, and we will be doing interviews throughout the spring and summer for that fall enrollment period. So if you submit your application to be considered for fall 2024, let's say you submit your application week, you will likely be kind of putting completing an interview later in 2024. Still scrolling. Nikki, that's a great question. What percentage of our students receive financial aid? Do we know the adjusted average for students after aid? I don't have that information. That might be something that, so we shared the slides of the financial aid department that you can reach out for more information on those numbers. I do know it's a pretty high percentage of our students receive financial aid, similar to other comparable institutions. Is the hybrid part-time option available for spring? Yes, it is. Right, did they change? Is that something that changed this year? Okay.
Yeah, so hybrid's only going to be available in the fall. So yeah, all the spring cohorts are going to be full-time online programs.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tanya. I apologize for that. Let's see. And from Miriam's question, I need to go through the slide of licensure and hours in both paths, which is counted and which exactly is not. I'm not sure how to answer your question, but we will be sharing these slides after the meeting, so you'll be able to go back through that slide.
If it's okay, Megan, I can provide a little bit more insight on like the dual licensure, because it seems like there's some students asking about that. So there are licensure requirements that have like the hour requirements for both LPCC and LMFT licensures, but the thing is only LMFT licensure will allow you to accrue hours before you graduate, and there's like a limit. It's like 1,300 hours that you can accrue for your LMFT licensure before you graduate. For LPCC, all of the hours that you accrue you have to get after you graduate, but the thing is the 2-hour requirements can overlap, so you don't have to get like a ridiculous combined amount of hours for LMFT and LPCC, but the LMFT one is more like there's more hour requirements. So typically by the time you complete the LMFT, you will already have completed your hour requirements for the LPCC, but you don't start accruing hours for LPCC until after, and you can accrue up to 1,300 for LMFT before graduation.
Thank you. So for Ray, yes, folks, if you've already completed another master's or PhD, we will still need your official transcripts for your undergrad. Laura, so can we skip a quarter, or do we have to be enrolled every quarter? You can apply for a leave of absence at any time in the program. So if you anticipate having a child, or if you anticipate needing to leave the country for some reason, you are absolutely able to take a leave of absence. You would just work with your academic advisor to kind of keep your program of study on track throughout that leave. What percentage of applicants gain a place on the course? I'm thinking this is an enrollment question. So what percentage of our applicants are accepted? I think
for that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for the spring, I believe on average, spring and fall in like the 70% range, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, so Miriam, to your question, are there there are two paths different in the materials to take different licenses? So yes, so the process of applying for an LPCC and the LMFT are slightly different because they're different licenses, but excuse me. All right. Yep. So the processes are slightly different. However, a lot of the things are going to stay the same, like how you track your hours, just the license eligible sites, stuff like that. But they are going to be different processes. Alice, if you want to apply for this program and the PsyD, Tanya, is that?
Yeah, I do believe you have to do 2 different applications for those programs, since you have to turn in different materials, in terms of like personal statement and recommendation letters. We don't really recommend having the same recommendation letters for both. So yeah, you would have to complete 2 different ones.
Thank you.
And I will say, just something to be mindful of is that the faculty who are reviewing your applications can see that you have also applied to other programs in PAU. So just be mindful of your your personal statement, I think, is a big one. If you copy and paste a personal statement from one program to another, we see that. And what we want to see, especially with your personal statement, is that you have really thoughtfully considered why you want to be enrolled in that program. So if you copy and paste your personal statement, that could negatively impact your application. I also see a question on here. It's so funny. I received an email from my faculty this morning speaking to, where did you go? Karen's question. So how does the potential student experience at PAU stand out from other schools, and what is most dynamic on your program? So I started thinking about the answer to that question in my head, and then I realized that I had been CC'd on an email this morning. I'm going to pop this in the chat box. So what I'm sharing right now is a blog link from a current student who has offered a kind of their capture of their experience in the first year in the program. And I think this really adequately and accurately summarizes my thoughts as well. You feel free to pull this up and read this at a later time, but essentially, I think what makes this program stand out is our emphasis on social justice. With each of our questions with each of our courses throughout the curriculum, there is an enormous emphasis on how to create positive social change in your local communities. So we want our coursework to not just be classes that you're learning and have absolutely no relevance to your life. Like, our classes are specifically designed to be applicable, to be relevant, to help you make change within your community, both inside of the mental health profession and outside as well. So what that means, what that looks like for us, is that you saw the slides earlier. We have an incredibly diverse faculty with an incredibly diverse range of experiences and expertise. So you're learning from a lot of different voices. And I would say, as a rule of thumb, like, our faculty are first and foremost, student-centered, and second of all, we have an eye for social justice, for really ensuring that your classes are applicable to your personal life, to your life, to the lives of your communities, to the lives of your clients. So I think that's something that really makes us stand out from other schools. And one of the more dynamic aspects of us. And Laura, your question, do students tend to be a range of ages? Yes, we do. So I think that's also a really beautiful thing about this program is we have an incredibly diverse student body. One of the reasons that we see this happening is because we offer the flexibility of being able to take online courses. And so what that looks like for us is that it draws people who are parents, who are full-time employees, who are coming to school later in life after a career switch. So it's not uncommon for your cohort members to range in age from 22 to 62. There is just such a wide breadth of different student backgrounds represented in each of our cohorts. So I love to see that. I started teaching at PAU when I was 29 years old, and when I came to school on my first day, I sat down and one of my students, who I think he was probably in his later 40s, looked at me and was like, "When do you think the teacher's going to get here?" I was like, "All right, here we go." So yeah, it's definitely the delivery formats of our program allow people from so many different backgrounds to join. Okay, Christina, I'm seeing your question again. So we do not have a list of practicum sites on our website, but we do have a list that is available for our students as they begin to enter their practicum and internship experiences. Rest assured, that list is very long. If you are located here in the Bay Area, we have a lot of different agencies that we are in a formal relationship with. So you shouldn't struggle to find a site, especially if you're here in the Bay Area. So what are common job roles for students who have attended school? That's a good question. I'm not sure. A lot of our students are teachers. A lot of our students are caregivers in other capacities, professional capacities. I have had students who are like in tech who work for Google. And so the range is pretty broad. Elise, workload outside of class. So the workload outside of class is going to depend, I think, a lot on your work style. As I mentioned earlier, for each of the units that you're enrolled in, consider that that's going to take about 3 hours outside of class associated with that unit. So typically what I tend to see is that for each class, you're thinking about, around 7 to 10 hours of work, including attending class for 2 or 3 hours and reading and studying and doing your assignments. We do have learning modules for each of our classes. So each of our courses is going to be set up on an 11-week quarter. So we have a learning management system. We use Canvas here. It's very similar to Blackboard if you've used that in the past. But we use that to really structure the class. And then we have live weekly classes, either virtual classes or in-person classes, depending on your delivery. Okay, so Ben is asking about the differences and overlap between LMFT and LCSW. So unfortunately, the conversation around clinical social work is kind of outside of the scope of today's meeting, but I would definitely recommend you doing a deep dive in just starting to Google the different in the scope of practice for each of those licensures, because they are different. So yeah, make sure that clinical counseling is your path before applying. Let's see. I noticed the info online regarding the practicum portion of training made it sound like it was only 2 weeks. So your practicum is 1 term. It's an 11-week quarter, and internship again is 2 quarters, and it sometimes can take 2, 3, or 4 quarters, some depending on your specific circumstances.
I do just want to add really quickly, I think they might be referring to the in-person residencies that we have. If you are in the online program, you do need to complete 2 in-person residencies with us in Palo Alto. They're both 1 week in length, and they happen in your 2nd term and then again in your 4th term. But that is not your practicum and your internship experience. That is a separate experience that you'll need to complete before you can start your fieldwork experience.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Okay, so I see a question around to speak to the depth of the faculty and interest areas. Again, that's a little bit outside of the scope of what I think we can do today, but you can explore all of our interest areas, our clinical background, our research areas using the paloaltou.edu website. If you are located in another state, let's see, do you have to sit for another licensure exam? It depends on the state again. So you're going to have to look at the specific licensure requirements for that state. They are all different. It's pretty frustrating if you're planning on crossing straight lines. I got to be honest, I had to do that twice. Each state is different. But thankfully, CACREP does at least give you that educational requirement kind of peace of mind, because we do have a robust program that comes with that CACREP accreditation. Okay. Okay, so Christina is asking about the difference between the MS in psychology or the MA in counseling. So the primary difference between these programs is that the MA in counseling is licensure eligible, and that it is focused on becoming a professional counselor or marriage and family therapist. The MS in psychology is not license eligible. So if you complete the MS in psychology program, you cannot apply for licensure in any state. So what we see a lot of our MS students doing is then going to apply for PhDs in clinical psychology, but that would take you on kind of a different career path than the MA in counseling. So, and just as a, kind of just to summarize really quickly, a professional counselor is, it is different than a clinical psychologist. And I would really, really recommend you, again, doing your research before submitting your application to see the different roles and responsibilities of a clinical psychologist versus a professional counselor. Because your day-to-day life after completing those licenses is going to be very, very different. So the price of those degree paths are very, very different as well. So make sure that you do that research before applying. Let's see. Okay, so to Ben's question regarding dual licensure and the information that was just shared, do hours accrued for LMFT prior to graduation transfer to LPCC, even if accrued prior to graduation? So to clarify, the hours that you accrue while in the MA program can only apply to an LMFT license, because the LPCC license does not allow you to count the hours that you have completed while in the program. So pre-graduation hours. So that time clock starts after you've graduated for the LPCC. The LMFT does count your hours that you completed pre-graduation. Yeah. So I don't have our NCMHC CE pass rates off the top of my head, but I was just CC'd on an email probably 2 months ago that that our pass rates are extremely high, some of the best in California. So our students do extremely well, or our alumni do extremely well on the state licensure exam, which I think is really exciting. So we do have, just regarding scholarships, we do have a limited number of scholarships available that are generally financial need-based. Our interviewers, as we go through the admissions process, will flag each of our, we'll flag kind of as potential scholarship recipients. There's not a formal process to apply for the scholarship at this point. One thing that our program does is we have numerous opportunities for work study and student employment. So think of if that is something that you're interested in, we are going to have many opportunities to serve as a graduate assistant, a teaching assistant, a research assistant. So we do try and hire our students to help, again, get you involved, kind of get you involved in the program, but also to help offset the cost of your tuition. Kelly, so the structure of the interviews, we do a group interview model. So what that looks like for you is that if you make it to the interview round, you will be invited to participate in a 2-hour interview with eight or nine other members present. During that interview, it will consist of whole group discussion and small group discussion, and it will be facilitated by a faculty member and master's students, admissions evaluators. So during that process, it's really just an opportunity for us to get to learn more about you and your motivation for joining the program. And pretty shortly thereafter, you'll be hearing back from us related to a decision. So that process moves pretty quickly. We say around 6 weeks turnaround time, but often it's much shorter than that. To the question, can MA classes be transferred to the PsyD program? No, there's no transferable credits from the counseling program to the PsyD or the clinical psychology PhD. So for the distance learning cohort, is it possible to do the practicum and internship abroad in another language? Yes. So many of our students who are located internationally conduct their practicum and internship experiences in the local or native language. So that's absolutely an option for folks. So to a news question, can practicum hours be fulfilled at various agency sites to get experience? Yes. So it's not uncommon for our students to have 2 sites, more sites. We do generally advise our students to find one site where you can get the majority of your hours, so that consistency is key there, but you are absolutely able to have supplemental sites depending on your needs. Elisa, so we do not have public reading lists for the curriculum, but you are able to look at the curriculum, the program of study, the course offerings through our website, through exploring our program page. So definitely take a look at the different course titles and the course descriptions. That could be pretty helpful to get you oriented on what would be offered in the class. Miriam, yes, you do have courses that you complete while you are involved in practicum and internship. Okay, we are getting toward the end here, and I'm seeing a lot of questions that still need answers. So here, what I'm going to offer is for folks that have outstanding questions that were not addressed in today's meeting, please feel free to reach back out to us. I know Tanya will be in touch providing the slides from today. So that's a great point of contact if you have follow-up questions that have still not been resolved. Also, I just want to urge everyone to please take a look through our web pages. We have a ton of information available about the MA program online. So click through each of those tabs, explore the website, and a lot of knowledge is on there that can help you make a decision about this program. But I want to thank everyone today for being here, for being so active in the chat, and for all of your questions. We really look forward to being in discussion with you and to hearing your future questions and for receiving many of your applications. So thank you so much for sitting with us today on a Saturday. My goodness, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. All right. Thanks, everyone.